The snowfall began early that December evening, blanketing the small, sleepy town of Pinewood in a pristine sheet of white. The air was biting cold, and the streets were eerily silent, save for the occasional whistle of the wind cutting through the night. Among the quaint houses adorned with festive lights, there was one house, dark, unlit, and shrouded in an air of abandonment. It was known as the Holloway House, a place avoided by the townsfolk, especially during the holidays. Stories swirled about its dark history, about how a family once vanished there on Christmas Eve, leaving behind a grotesque trail of blood and mystery. But the town's children whispered an even darker tale about a twisted, malevolent version of Santa Claus who haunted the house, a figure who punished the wicked with a hunger that could never be sated. At the edge of the town, 4 friends, Ethan, Mia, Lucas, and Rachel, gathered in a dimly lit cafe. The atmosphere buzzed with nervous energy as Ethan laid out a map of Pinewood, marking the Holloway House with a shaky circle. "We go in, we stay until midnight, and then we're out," Ethan declared, his voice firm but tinged with apprehension. "It's just a house after all." "You mean the haunted house?" Rachel corrected, her dark eyes narrowing. "What if the stories are true? What if there really is something in there?" Mia smirked, flipping her auburn hair over her shoulder. "Ghosts don't exist. It's just a creepy old place. We'll be fine." Lucas, the quietest of the group, hesitated. "What about the legend? The Santa Claus thing?" His voice faltered, but his words hung heavily in the air. Ethan waved him off. "It's a story to scare kids. Don't worry about it." The group set off toward the Holloway House, their breath visible in the icy night. As they approached, the house loomed before them, its dark windows like empty eyes, its sagging roof a testament to decades of neglect. The air grew colder, almost unnaturally so, as if the house itself exhaled a frosty breath. Inside, the house was a labyrinth of shadows and decay. The wooden floorboards groaned underfoot, and the scent of mildew and rot filled their nostrils. The faint glow of their flashlights carved weak paths through the darkness, revealing peeling wallpaper and broken furniture. An unsettling stillness pervaded every corner, as though the house was waiting. Hours passed in nervous exploration. They found nothing but dust and silence, yet unease clung to them like a second skin. As midnight approached, they gathered in what must have been the living room, a cavernous space dominated by a long-abandoned fireplace. The room felt colder than the rest of the house, the air so frigid that their breath froze mid-air. Then came the sound, a faint jingling, like bells carried on the wind, growing louder with each passing moment. The group froze, their flashlights flickering, as if the house itself rebelled against their intrusion. "Do you hear that?" Rachel whispered, her voice barely audible over the rising sound. Before anyone could answer, the room was plunged into darkness. The flashlights died, leaving them blind in the inky black. Panic set in as they scrambled to relight them, but the oppressive darkness seemed to swallow even their voices. And then, the laughter began. It was deep, guttural, and wrong, a sound that scraped against their nerves like rusted nails on a chalkboard. It echoed through the house, coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Who's there?" Ethan shouted, his voice cracking. The laughter stopped abruptly, replaced by a chilling silence. Then, a new sound emerged, the slow, deliberate thud of heavy boots descending the staircase. Each step was measured, echoing ominously through the house. Mia fumbled for her flashlight, finally managing to flick it on. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating the staircase. At the top stood a figure, tall and grotesque, clad in a tattered red suit. His face was obscured by a twisted mask of what looked like decayed flesh, and in his gloved hand, he held a large, rusted hook that dripped with something dark and viscous. "Run!" Lucas screamed, breaking the paralysis that had gripped them all. They bolted for the door, but the house seemed to conspire against them. The floorboards buckled, the walls groaned, and unseen hands seemed to claw at them, pulling them back into the suffocating darkness. One by one, their screams echoed through the halls. Rachel was the first to go, dragged into the shadows by an unseen force. Her screams were cut short, leaving only the sound of wet, tearing flesh. Mia and Lucas made it to the front door, only to find it barred by an unseen force. Behind them, the laughter resumed, louder and closer than before. Ethan turned to face their pursuer, gripping a broken chair leg as a makeshift weapon. "Stay back," he shouted, his voice trembling. But the figure only tilted its head, as if amused, before lunging forward with unnatural speed. The last thing Ethan saw was the glint of the hook before everything went black. Morning came, and with it, a fresh layer of snow. The Holloway house stood as it always had, silent and foreboding. Inside, there was no trace of the four friends, only the faint scent of pine and the echo of distant bells. As the townsfolk went about their day, a strange figure appeared on the outskirts of Pinewood. Clad in a red suit and carrying a large sack, he moved with a deliberate gait. Those who saw him swore they caught a glimpse of something writhing within the sack, accompanied by muffled cries. But when they blinked, he was gone, leaving only a trail of deep, heavy footprints in the snow, leading back toward the Holloway house. And from somewhere in the distance came the sound of laughter, deep and guttural, promising that the legend of the Holloway house was far from over.